Welcome back to Behind the Camo. In this episode, we're focusing on one of the biggest questions people have. What does it actually take to join the army? Whether you're considering it yourself or watching as a parent or supporter, we're here to demystify the recruitment process, from eligibility and applications to what basic training is really like. We'll walk you through the journey from civilian to soldier and officer, and we'll tackle some of the common worries people have along the way. I'm Second Lieutenant Michael Kern, an Army reservist and Port and Maritime Troop Commander with 165 Regiment Royal Logistic Corps. Outside of the Army, I'm a business owner and sports broadcaster, and when I can, I love getting out on the football pitch as well. Like many reservists, I balance a civilian career with Army service, and it's opened doors to experiences and opportunities I never imagined. Let's start by breaking down the steps. What happens from the moment you apply right through to completing basic training? And yes, we'll cover officer entry too. If you're watching us live, you can pop your questions in the chat box and our team will reply and give you some answers. With me today, we have Second Lieutenant Simon Taylor, Staff Sergeant Wes Thornley, Corporal Amy Manning, Lance Corporal Casey McNeil, and Corporal George Stagg. They're here to share their experiences and answer some of the questions we know lots of you will have. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you all here with us. Let's just kick things off by introducing yourself, which regiment you serve with, and your journey into becoming a soldier.
So I'm Second Lieutenant Simon Taylor. I serve in 16th Regiment Royal Artillery. I first started thinking about joining the Army back in 2020. There's a vetting process that you have to go through online first to make sure that you're first and foremost eligible to join the Army. After that, you go and do your medical. Upon completing that, you get given a date to do your briefing. At the briefing, you get given either a Cat 1, 2, 3 or 4, and that will let you know what date you can go and take part in the final officer selection at main board. And then at main board, it is either a straight pass or fail. You get 2 attempts at that, and then after that, whenever there is a space at sound test, then crack on.
Yeah, that's obviously part of that officer journey. And for yourself?
My name is Staff Sergeant Wes Thornley. I joined the Army back in 2001. I'm a Challenger 2 Tank Commander with the King's Royal Hussars, as per my regiment. However, at the current minute, I'm actually a recruiter when Army Careers Office down in Bournemouth, so I get to see the candidates as they come in and assist them with the application process as they go through. Back when I joined the Army, yet again, the process was very similar to how it is now. There's just been a few tweaks. We still had to go through the fitness assessments, and on top of that, we still had the medical assessment as well, which are the standards are still relatively similar from what they were then back to now as well.
I'm Corporal Amy Manning. I'm currently a recruiting coordinator down in a careers office in Aldershot. So my job there is to try and help people get into the Army, guide them through the application process, and create a bit of initial interest going out to schools and doing careers talks. So I joined the Army back in 2020. I joined at 18 after I finished college. I done a little job in the meantime, realised it was good, but it wasn't ticking all the boxes for me. So I tried to find a job that challenged me. So I joined as an ammunition technician, went on become a number 2 within a bomb disposal team. I've been a sailing instructor, and now my job as a recruiting coordinator as well.
Amazing, we've got lots of questions on today's episode.
Hello, I'm Lance Corporal McNeil. I'm currently in Infantry Engagement Team South, engaging with the general public about a career in the infantry and what that can provide for them. So I joined the Army on the 1st October 2017. I went through Army Foundation College in Harrogate at 16 years old. Quite daunting, but a really good experience. Did the long course, which is 49 weeks, completed that successfully, then went up to the Infantry Training Centre in Catterick to do my trade training, completed that, and then my first posting was in 3 rifles in Edinburgh, which was really good. My unit, playing football.
Cool. So I'm George Stagg, so I'm a corporal within the Corps of Royal Engineers. So my main job at the moment is to do corps engagement, so I typically visit schools and colleges to showcase career opportunities available within the Corps of the Royal Engineers. So as a trade, I'm actually a carpenter, but because we're triple traded soldiers, I'm also a trained combat engineer as well. So my job is to facilitate the Army's requirement to live, move and fight through mobility, counter-mobility and survivability. So often we'd build bridges, or we'd booby trap buildings, or clear through minefields and so on. So I'm a carpenter, but with a bit extra.
We've got a real breadth of experience on the panel today. So thanks so much for giving up your time and being here. Whether you're applying to join as a soldier or an officer, preparation is key to giving yourself the best chance of success. For soldiers, it's important to focus on improving your fitness gradually, working towards the standards needed for the assessment centre's physical tests, such as running, lifting, and teamwork challenges. Staying organised with your paperwork, including medical forms and identity documents, will also help things run smoothly. For officer candidates, alongside fitness preparation, it's useful to practice planning exercises, public speaking, and group discussions, as these form a big part of the Army Officer Selection Board. In both routes, researching Army life, understanding the values of teamwork, resilience, and leadership, and speaking to recruiters or current serving personnel can really help build confidence ahead of assessment. One thing I know from my own journey and from talking to people thinking about joining is that there are always plenty of questions, and that's completely normal. So let's tackle some of those things that people ask us most about joining the Army as a soldier, and who better to answer them than our recruiters and our expert panel. A recruiter, of course, someone who helps people take those first steps every single day. So Amy, I guess you get a real breadth of people coming to speak to you. And all ages as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So my job would be to initially meet people and have those first conversations with them. If that's just to gain more of an insight and more information to make that choice later down the line, or to move forwards and help with your application throughout its journey, from putting it online to seeing you right through and helping you get to basic training.
Amazing. We've got lots of questions, and obviously for the rest of the panel as well. We're looking forward to your expertise on these as well. So a big question that we really get asked is, you need to be super fit before you apply. Just give us some kind of knowledge around that one.
Yeah, so obviously fitness is a big part of the Army. There's no way around that. But super fit is probably a bit strong. All of the fitness requirements will be dependent on what job role you want to choose. And they'll be posted online, or we can tell you that as well. So it's a good starting place to aim for. And then throughout your career, that's when your fitness is going to improve with your help from your PTIs, the physical training instructors, to develop your fitness there and grow that passion for fitness.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, isn't it? That actually that kind of fitness element, the Army is there to support you and your journey. They're not expecting you to turn up as this lean, mean super athlete on day one.
A good thing as well, if people look on the Army's website as well, on there there's something called a role finder. On there, that'll give you the job description for every job, but it actually gives you what the fitness requirements are for that specific job as well, and every job's tailored slightly different, so it will actually give you the understanding. And if you're not sure how to run a bleep test, then that's what the recruiters are there for, to assist you with that as well.
Yeah, great.
The Army, sorry to interrupt, the Army will give all the tools to your disposal. So the Army doesn't expect you to turn up on week one, day one, being able to carry 20 kg and run 5 miles, because it's not realistic. The Army knows that. So what the Army will do is gradually build your foundations up, and this is done by, how Amy said, the PTIs, and that's their job role. And it's up to you to dig into that and work hard. And if you work hard and try and put the effort in, there's nothing you can't do. So if you're on the fence and you're a bit, I don't want to join the Army because of the fitness, don't let that be an excuse. I'd advise anyone, just look online, speak to soldiers, gather information what you can, and go from there.
Yeah, I think definitely for me that was something that I was apprehensive about before joining up, not to realise, or only to then realise, obviously fitness is very progressive. They'll take you from zero to hero. You do not need to be, Superman before you join up. Everything will be taught to you and trained within you as well.
So from the officer's standpoint, at the briefing and main board, the fitness standard is exactly the same for everyone. Every single regular commissioned officer that goes through the British Army has to complete the 11 months at Sandhurst, and so the fitness standard is exactly the same for everybody else that goes through. Those are also very easily accessible, and again, on the briefing, you get taken through what that looks like, so by the time the main board comes around, you're fully prepared. you know what's coming with the fitness standards, and it's absolutely nothing that you need to worry about.
Yeah, there's certainly that support there. Next big question is about qualifications. It's like any kind of job. You put your CV in and you list your qualifications. There's always sometimes that kind of preconception that you have to have top grades. How does that work with the Army with qualifications?
Yeah, so there's hopefully, as you're aware at this point, there's loads of jobs within the Army, and they range in qualifications required, job role specific. So there's lots of job roles that don't require any formal qualifications. So like our infantry soldiers, our air crew, our chefs and drivers, and a large array of other jobs. And then sort of as we progress, we may need to pass these in English and maths, and that will open up a lot more job roles. And then if we get a few other subjects, it broadens out again. And as I'm sure you can attest with officer, looking at A-levels and UCAS points as well.
Yeah, so from that education standpoint, I think A-levels is a minimum that you need to have to enter in. A lot less of the officer cohort have now gone to university, I think, from what it used to be. So don't let education be a barrier. Again, the information on exactly what you need to get to AOSB Westbury is widely accessible. I think for some roles, like in the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, having a degree that is related to that field is necessary to go into that. But to my knowledge, that's one of a lot of cap badges in which you have to have a specific qualification. So,
but no matter where you go in the Army, especially speaking as an infantry soldier, so I joined with no qualifications, but the Army will make you do qualifications as part of its apprenticeship in Harrogate. So you will leave Harrogate with maths and English, because the Army realises as you go up the chain of command, as you start to lead people, the Army's realise that you need to have some sort of formal education, and it puts you in good stead for when you eventually leave or transition out the military. So it's another really good benefit the Army gives you.
Yeah, of course. And also, I've got my old boss, for instance, she went and obviously recap badge because she realised, actually, I want to do and try something different. So she got a bursary scheme completely paid for by the Army. So she went to do medicine, I think it is, or something along the lines of that anyway, where she was sent to Birmingham to go to university. Her accommodation was paid for and the Army would pay for that degree. And also, if you're not in the Army, you can leverage and use the Army to your advantage to obviously pay for your university and stuff like that. They do have some schemes in place. I'm not too familiar with them all, but I'm sure that you probably
correct.
know them all.
So different bursary grants, depending on what degrees you want to go on to study, and specifically within that medical field, job roles such as nurses, biomedical science and environmental health technicians. There's all funding to put you through your degree fully and pay. You'd have already been in the Army by that point, so you'd be receiving a full salary and a paid-for degree as well. So lots of different high-level apprenticeships, but also all the apprenticeships completely linked with every job role.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of support there, isn't there, to help you kind of progress through that.
We used to get a lot of questions as well in the ACC that if people didn't have the correct qualifications, can they still go into that job? Now, unfortunately, the Army will not allow you to go into a specific job role if you're not qualified. But there is nothing stopping you as an individual, once you're in the Army, actually getting the correct qualifications and then potentially changing jobs later on. It's just something for people to be aware of, so they won't put you through on the caveat that I'm going to get this. The only time that's taken into consideration is with the Army Foundation College because of the age and the people that are coming through, because they won't have the GCSE grades at that point. But actually, we used to get that as quite a large question as well. If I don't have it, can I still do it? So the answer to that realistically is no. But it's something you can still work towards while you're in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about the timelines. If you're watching this right now and you're going to log on to the website and put an expression of interest in, what kind of timelines are we looking at? I know it can be broad, but it's a bit of a guide.
So it is a completely unique process for every application. So it is hard to give that timescale. You'll see applications take, say, 4 months. You'll see applications take a few years potentially. And what that can look like is certain stages an application has to go through. So the first one would be us providing you some more information about the Army in order for you to make that informed choice. From there, we would receive your medical records and they would get reviewed by Army doctors against our policies. At that stage, sometimes there can be information in your medical records that need further information. If that's the case, it would be going to your doctors to get that, and that can obviously be a process to add time. Once all your medical side's gone through, we'd then be looking onto the assessment centre. Part of the assessment centre is the fitness elements to it. So if within your application, if you're ready to go, you can meet those standards, fitness standards, and want to give it a go. We can send you to that assessment centre quite soon. But if you need a bit of time to work on it, that's no issue. It just adds that bit of time. If that is the case, then we can provide different fitness support sessions to help guide you through that journey.
Nice. And how did you all find the process? I know different timescales for different people, but any kind of experiences you want to share on your timescales and your journeys?
Yeah, so for myself, I was sort of in that weird age bracket where I had the option to obviously undergo my training in Harrogate, and then I could have gone through adult entry if I waited a little bit longer. So my waiting times differed because of my age. So I had that option. But generally, it wasn't too bad. I think I probably had more of the faster side of joining up. It didn't take too long at all.
Yeah, I'm the same. My process to join the army is quite straightforward. I submitted my application, did a army brief about all the different roles and things you can do within the army, set off my medical questionnaire, got my assessment date in Lichfield, done that, and then once I completed that, I got my start date for Harrogate, and it was from there, one foot was through the door. It's just up to me.
Yeah, so from my standpoint, it was maybe a little bit more complicated just by virtue of grew up in Africa, Zambia specifically, until I was 18 before coming over here to try and make a career out of cricket as well as study. And so there was a lot of proving of living at various addresses and stuff. So even though I did have a British passport, I had to be in the country for 5 years. And I think I had to spend a certain amount of time of those 5 years in the country at a time. So, yeah, it was a lot of proving that, bit of back and forth with the recruiters about getting that through. But once that was through, then the dealings with the hospital and getting my medical records and all the rest of that to ASB Westbury so that I could go and do my medical was pretty straightforward. Then got my briefing date. Unfortunately, I didn't pass on the first time around, but as I said, there's always that second time, and again was pretty straightforward for getting a date for the next one, and thankfully I'm sitting here today.
I think it's important to add as well that along this process there may be hurdles, but actually just keep that resilience to keep going. You know, it's quite common that there might be some extra medical questions that needed to be answered. That's not necessarily a hurdle as a roadblock. It's just a little bit of extra information that's needed. So don't be disheartened on your journey if there is a couple of extra bits you need to do.
No, I can agree with that. I went through selection quite a bit of time ago, so unfortunately it took me about 8 weeks in total from walking into the careers office door through to walking through the gates at ATR Winchester. This is going back obviously 24 years. However, the process is not very much dissimilar. Yeah, and there is going to be hurdles in the way. I mean, myself, I didn't realise I actually needed classes. So I had to cut away for a week, go and get my eyes tested, make sure and provide all the relevant information. So what happened then still happens now. But it depends on the individual in question. And being realistic about it, your application process can take as long as genuinely takes, but at the same time, it also depends on the amount of buy-in you've got as an individual. So the more engaged you are, the more you want to get things done, the quicker it can move. So for example, like me, I went straight to the opticians, literally had an appointment the day after, got that all sorted, and then given the paperwork that was required within 48 hours because I wanted to join the army, and that was relatively quick. Now I know some people it can be a lot more difficult now, especially the demand on doctors or opticians, whatever the case may be. But I would say generally say stick with it, and the more effort you put in, the faster things will go as well, which is always a good thing for you as an individual.
Yeah, massively. Do you get a say in what role you do is another question that we get asked a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely your choice as to what role you want to go. Obviously, it's making sure you'd be eligible for it with those qualifications. But beyond that, it's your choice. We're here to sort of advise and talk through the different job roles and what may best suit yourself, and put you in touch with people who do those job roles, so you can ask those specific questions that you may be having. Because obviously, a lot of the job roles within the army are completely different, and it's hard to have that full understanding of what a day-to-day life could look like. So we're here to try and help get that across. But absolutely your choice. You can change it as you do more research and find out new things. Once you finish assessment centre, that's when we'd be looking to secure your basic training. So we'd sort of need a decision at that point as to what job role you want.
I think as well the point is there's lots of choice within the army.
Yeah, within the army as a whole, there's lots of different job choices. I believe there's over 100 different ones. Again, with different elements to it, and all with different, if you will, perks or different skills that will come with that job. So, for example, for me as a tank crewman, when I started the army, I actually had no driving licence. I gained my car driving licence through the job that I was doing. Then I gained my H licence, which is a track licence, and then I was quite happy cutting around in a Challenger 2 tank, which is something I still love even now, which is 24 years down the line, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant job to have. I wouldn't consider changing jobs at all. Even if I was to go back in time, I wouldn't. But the choice that you choose, the choice that you make as a person, is your job role. And yes, when you're in the army, if you do choose to change your job roles, that can be done. But that is a conversation for later on. That's a definite. But also, some of that I will mention is when you're looking at your jobs, you will get asked to pick a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. So you get asked to make your 3 choices. You top one, the next one down, and the next one down. Just make sure that when you're picking the jobs, make sure you do some research for yourself, take onus of your application, and actually make sure you qualify for them jobs as well. It will save yourself and the recruiters a conversation in the meantime as well.
And the officer route is obviously slightly different as well, because when you get to Sandhurst, the part of that training is that you can go and command and go and lead in different regiments across the British Army. But obviously there becomes a process when you're at Sandhurst where you'll kind of bid for which kind of regiment you'd like to be with, and there's an interview process for that.
Yes, yeah. So completely different to the sort of soldier pipeline. When you get to Sandhurst, you've got absolutely no idea where you're going. At least that's for the majority of the cadets. I don't think that there are any more confirmed cadets anymore, which is what they used to be. You obviously have an idea when you do join the army of possibly things that you want to go down, but that can be subject to change as soon as you get to Sandhurst. So, for example, you might seem to think that, I really want to go to the infantry. You go and do your first exercise out on the ground, and you find out this is not for me. Let's try a different route here. So it's quite nice from that standpoint, in the sense that you only have to confirm the 2 choices which you of regiments which you want to take forward. I think quite close to the end of the junior term, and over the process of the year until the first week of senior term, there will be a filtering and cutting process, because there will be PIDs that Glasgow will issue, so the amount of spaces that there are in each regiment that are available for officer cadets to go into, and each regiment will then take 2 times the amount of job spaces that there are to interviews, and then you will have 2 of those choices, and you go into that interview, and on the basis of that, then you will either get offered the job or a conditional, which is if somebody doesn't take one of those spots, then you will be in a queue, or if you don't get offered, there is a clearing process right at the end where you will ultimately get placed in a regiment somewhere. That clearing process only happens to a very, very small percentage of the officer cadets at Sandhurst, and I'd say the majority of people are really, really happy where they end up. So it is a bit of an imperfect system, but it absolutely does work and has worked for a while.
No, massively. We spoke a little bit about roadblocks and barriers and hurdles, that that's not the end of the road a little bit, and we focused a little bit specifically on the medical side of things. But if something doesn't quite work out during that assessment, it certainly isn't the end of the road.
No, definitely not. So with the assessment centre, there's a few different outcomes to it. There's a straight away pass, which is obviously what we are aiming for, but there's other ones there. So there's also a conditional pass. So that's a pass, but we just need to see some more information. And then there's a deferral. So this isn't the ideal one, but it's not the end by any means. So there could be a med deferral. So that may be once you go to the assessment centre, there's certain medical checks they do there, and they just have found a slight issue that needs a little bit more information on. So you'll go away, get that information, and then we'll send you back to the assessment centre. There's also fitness deferral. So if you've gone to the assessment centre, you've smashed everything else, and that's always to be appreciated. You're still done amazing in lots of other sections. There's just this one that may need a bit more work. So you come away, you're sort of, the good thing is you'll know where you stand now, and you'll have proved to yourself that you've gone and done all these other parts to it. And that will give you that motivation, hopefully, to go away, work on that fitness, just get it up to that level that you're aiming for, and then we'll send you back. In that meantime, there's lots of support we can offer to get you to that part. Or sometimes we may just see, I think it's called an attitude deferral. So if it's not quite the right place for you at the right time for Army, say there's team tasks that are completed. If you're not able to be that effective member of the team, you may just need a bit of time to work on that and that part of yourself. And again, there's different ways we can look at helping you. So anything that happens there, if it's not that straight up nice pass, there's still good options to get you through to the Army. It's just that little hurdle.
Okay, great. Next one to move on to is about, is there's such a thing of being too old to join? Is always a question that kind of gets asked as well. So is there kind of an age limit?
So there is usually a cut-off age limit of, here we go, I've got to remember now, 36 years old. You have to actually be enlisted by the time you turn 36. That's the cut-off age. However, there is still other options. If your age out for the regular Army, you do have the reserves, and their cut-off age will be 42. But yet again, this can be dependent upon the sort of job role you're going to go into as well, because they have specialist, professionally qualified personnel as well, which ages can go up or other measures can be put into place. But it is yet again on a case-by-case basis as well for those. But yeah, being realistic, your cut-off age for the regular Army will be 36.
I guess a lot of these questions as well, it's just have a conversation. Like, don't be afraid to pick up the phone if you are thinking about it, regardless of what your age is, but you might have a question about that kind of age limit. Just ask a question.
Absolutely. Always phone your local careers centre or pop in for a conversation. There will always be someone there to help guide you through, maybe offer a different thought process than you've had so far as well.
Some people might want to know a bit more information about at what point are you committed. Obviously, there's an element within the application where, if you were going for a normal job interview, they say, here's the job, here's the contract. What part of this process does everything become formalised?
Yeah, so I guess the equivalent within the Army would be your day one of basic training. When you do your attestation, that's when you've sort of made the commitment with the terms and conditions of service. Putting for your interest online isn't that stage. You're putting an interest online means we're able to get across some more information to you to be able to make up your mind and make those informed choices for yourself. So
nice. And I guess tied to that as well is some people want to know, when does the pay element kick in? Obviously, if there's assessment centres to go to and bits and pieces, there's some commitments before that attestation period. Yeah. When does the pay bit kick in?
Yeah, absolutely. Big question. So pay would start day one of your basic training. As you said, there is elements of commitment beforehand. Unfortunately, it's like any other job interview, you won't be paid, but we can always help with travel arrangements and things like that.
Just to jump on that, so the starting wage for any member of the audience watching who wishes to join the Army, the starting salary for a soldier entry route is over £26,000, which is quite generous. And any problems you've got with deductions, i.e. tax or laundry deductions or whatever it may be, or your food bill, accommodation bill, you will have people on camp you can go and see and speak to. Because when I first got paid, I looked at my pay slip, I didn't understand any of it, and then my sector commander sat me down and just went, this is what this means, this is what this is. And as you go on, it makes more sense. And the good thing with the Army, unless you majorly make a mistake, your pay will always go up because you'll do it in bands. So I've been a Lance Corporal for a few years, so I'm on the highest band of Lance Corporal pay, which is helpful. So that's good.
That's great. And obviously from an officer perspective?
Yeah, so the pay for an officer cadet joining on day one is over £34,000, which again is a very competitive offer as a sort of graduate level salary for anybody that's trying to find a job on the other side of university. So a lot of people that are coming out of university, it is an attractive wage. If you, in my case, I started on, I think it was the 10th of September, you get paid for the 20 days. So you will still get paid at the end of the month, but we got a reduced wage because we only started on the 10th, and your pay starts from week one, day one.
So we've obviously been talking about age there from a soldier perspective. From an officer perspective, it's slightly different.
Yeah, so you have to start your basic training at Sandhurst before you reach the age of 28 years and 11 months. So it is slightly different from the officer's perspective.
And it's slightly higher for a reserve officer as well. So there's plenty of information on that. And obviously, if that's a route that you're looking to go down, there's plenty of information online that will give you further clarity on that as well. So obviously, when you're going through this process, there are elements that you might want to train for and might need to train for, especially that fitness bit. And what support is there for someone who just needs that little bit of extra support?
Yeah, so as your recruiters, you'll obviously will be allocated one. We can offer you different fitness support sessions, including female-specific ones too. And we'll always be there to sort of check in, see how you're doing. We can put you in contact with different physical training instructors and just sort of provide that support throughout, tracking progress together and looking forward to where that can lead you and helping. I think what can work as really good motivation as well is, as for officer ones as also, we've got Army Insight days, days with different regiments and corps, just to build that understanding of what you're working towards as that motivation. Is probably where we can come in to give you that motivation to go out when it's rainy, go out for that run or whatever it may be that you're looking to do.
We'll also give you advice as well on, the best way, on some of the best apps to use, plus also the right things to do. And we'll also give you, more importantly, we'll give you the advice on what not to do, because some people do think that they can just pick up a backpack with 20 kilos in and start running. But we'll give you advice on how not to get hurt as well, and things that you shouldn't be doing, because you're trying to basically run before you're walking, if that makes any sense. So we'll just give you that advice on what to focus on. It's not training you for a fitness test, but we're training you to make sure you're hitting the right milestones as you're going through your application process as well.
And I think as well, it's worth saying from the officer perspective that Army Officer Selection Board, there are obviously a lot of tests that come in there, and you have to do public speaking, written work, and obviously there's some mathematical tests and some competency testing there as well. There's support on that as well, and there are information you can get and also support as well.
Yes, absolutely. So as you've said, there are quite a few different aspects that you're tested over while you're there. One of them is that public discussion piece, for example. So you get into a room with your syndicate and you talk about current affairs, and you've got to be able to put your view across concisely, clearly, and also acknowledge everybody else's points of view. So best thing to do for that, for example, is just get on the news, be as widely read as you can before you start. Psychometric testing. I personally got a UCAT medical textbook which has got all of the verbal, numerical and abstract reasoning questions in there with answers. I found that really helpful. And yeah, talk to your recruiter. When you get to that stage, you will have a personal recruiter who you can call up, ask for those resources, ask how you can best prepare. And also, if you've got friends that have gone through the process before, that's also incredibly useful to get other resources like the planning exercises, how to go through that.
That's great. Well, some incredibly useful information there. So thank you so much for kind of sharing that information with us as well. I guess another quick one to touch on is something that's come up a lot in the episodes is kind of the sport element and the hobbies element. I guess there's an element we spoke a lot about is the kind of piece of the opportunities to participate in sport and those bits and pieces. But I think a nice element to pick up on this conversation is that when you join the Army, you don't have to give up your sport and your hobbies and all those other bits as well. So, for example, if you are into gaming or those kind of bits and pieces, there are opportunities to do that within the Army. Esports is a massive thing in the Army now, but also you can still have that time with your friends and family at the weekend. You can still do those other things outside of the Army as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about that balance. I think the Army does get it right on the whole. So for sports, before I joined the Army, I'd done some sailing instructing. I was lucky enough to go down to the Army Sailing Centre and do instructing there for 9 months. So I took that step out of work. I taught sailing, windsurfing, powerboating, and they gave me a load of qualifications to do that and support that as well. From there as well, I joined the Army sailing team, where I've got to represent the Army against the Navy and the RAF and at a national competition as well, getting that time off work to do training events and competitions as well.
Nice.
It's really good with the whole sports thing because a lot of it is heavily subsidised as well. So I spent minimal amount of money competing in skiing and snowboarding out in Austria. And you're paying pennies because obviously you pay into the sports lottery and that charity can subsidise a lot of it as well. So, and the army will help keep the costs down. So you can go away for ages and then a lot of it's paid for. Like I was away all of last week, just doing the army champs for taekwondo, and I've only started this in January, but the ability to take up a new sport and then compete and go for these competitions, you won't really get outside of the army, and you're getting paid to do it, which is awesome.
Sports is a massive culture in the army, and it's such a attractive thing. Any sport you want to do, whether it's sailing, football, rock climbing, mountaineering, power boating, cliff jumping, anything you want to do, the army will provide it. So I went to the Netherlands for 5 days and played football, and I paid minimal. My accommodation and transport was done and paid by my regiment.
There's a very similar thing as well, and so if we break it down into now hobbies, you can get funding by the army each year as your learning credits. I think, how much is it again? It's
£180.
180
up
odd
to
quid.
6 years.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. And as long as you can justify why it'll benefit you as a soldier, you can get funded for different things. So every Wednesday, and this is paid for by the army, I do beekeeping because it's just a random thing that I've never done before and I wanted to try it out. And I thought, well, if I can get it funded for, and it might be good fun, it might be interesting. And it's just another string to your bow. But you can do other things that will benefit you in terms of you can get engineering courses done and stuff like that. But in terms of pursuing your hobbies, there's scope for the army to actually help and pay towards it, which is really good as well.
Some brilliant insight there, so thanks for that. And I hope that's helped clear up some questions and some of the big questions that you might have when you're thinking about joining. But of course, it's not just the person applying who goes on that journey. Families and supporters are part of it too. So, question for the panel now is the kind of family element for yourselves. When you first said, I'm thinking about joining the army, what was the reaction of your family and what's the support been like?
My family welcomed it. I was in college. I wasn't particularly enjoying what I was doing. I think I was doing sociology, media studies and graphic design, and they weren't really subjects that spoke to me as a person. I just sort of went and did it because my mates did it and I was young, and but I ended up leaving, joining the army. Family loved it because they both served within the RAF themselves, and they know the dynamic of it, going through the training process, being away at times and stuff like that. So throughout my career, I've not really been a crazy close family person, but people that do have families, have kids, girlfriends and so on, they get a lot of time to as I'm sure yourselves know, but because I've sort of used to it growing up and in a military family, it doesn't bother me too much, and I like my own space anyway because I work in a big team of people, so I do like that balance I get.
Yeah, there's a persona where people say, I'm obviously speaking as an infantry here. If you join the infantry, you don't get any qualifications, you'll go to war, and that's just not the case. And joining the infantry is one of them things where you're going away all the time and you're having all these really cool experiences, and it's like a pinch me moment. And I say to people, the infantry, the army do so much more than people realise. We do military aid to civilian authorities. When things need to be done, the army will be on call to help. So it's a massive honour to do that.
From a recruitment point of view, you're spending a lot of interaction with that person that's thinking about joining, but what support is there for the families, and is there resources that the recruits can share with their family members and supporters?
Yeah, so there's lots of support for everyone going through the process, with lots of information out on the Army website and social media and the YouTube channel to try and gain that understanding of what your child or partner could be going through on their application process and later on throughout their Army career. I know with me, I joined as sort of the first person to join the forces within family. So it's a lot of me understanding stuff and then trying to relay it over to family with potentially some initial reservations. But the more we sort of learnt together and through that process, and the more the courses that I've done, the more I think it's seen as a very good opportunity and career for me.
I think it might be worth noting as well that in the army, in the field army, once you're actually in, there's a really good welfare system in place where when you're on operational tours and stuff, you know, there's things organised for your families and they still get them involved with the regiment that you're serving with. And there's these things in place as well. And also you've got your left, right, up and down. By that, we mean the wider team. And they're essentially your family as well when you're away and stuff like that. So you're never truly on your own in work.
So the army have realised how important families are to serving soldiers. And, you know, it's just as hard as families when their husband or wife go away on operations or exercises for a long period of time. So if you're married and you've been a long-term relationship, you're entitled to a married quarters house, you know, which is at a discounted rate, and you can live there. You know, there is avenues for, you know, support. There's a welfare system. There's your chain of command. So there's loads of things in place that help serving soldiers and families adjust to the military life. You know, because it is daunting, especially if you're in a corps and you are moving. It can be hard, and the army appreciates that, and that's why it helps.
Yeah, I mean, each unit is obviously unique within the army, so doesn't matter where you are, there will always be a regimental welfare services, which usually consists of an officer, usually a senior NCO, and then maybe some more staff. They will be your first point of contact. These guys will be able to give you events that are happening within the local area, potentially even help you with in situations that you might arise. So, for example, if you're having trouble with housing, they'll be able to help you with that. And above them, you've also got the Army Welfare Services as well. And these guys are specially trained for certain elements, and they will be able to give you a broader picture for other services across the Army as well. It doesn't matter if you're single or it doesn't matter if you're married. The services are there for every single person who serves within the Army, and everyone's situation is always going to be different. So there's plenty of funding out there, and the best people to speak to will be the staff, the welfare staff within the regiment that you're serving, and they'll be able to help you in the right direction.
So I think a key part as well is there is obviously that element from a parental point of view and a supporter point of view, a guardianship piece of, you know, that understanding of what's about to happen, that journey and that support structure. And there's obviously open days and other bits of resources as well to support kind of parents that might have questions.
Yeah, I mean, with parents, everyone's completely different. We all know this. Now, parents are welcome when they come in, when the individual comes into the Army Careers Office. Parents are welcomed in with them, and the conversations will take place not only with the individual, with the parents there as well. So the knowledge and information being passed is passed to all parties as well. And then as you go through the application process, any briefings that happen, the parents are more than welcome to join them. So we actually actively encourage this as well, because then the information is all getting the same information. And as you keep going through, there is open days. So, for example, if one of the applicants is going to go to the Army Foundation College in Harrogate, they're encouraged to actually go up to those open days with them as well. Have a look around the facilities, see what's there, speak to people, see what other people have experienced as well and how they've gone through it. And then even as they progress through training, again, they'll get updates and be able to speak to their son, daughter as they go through as well, pretty much on a daily basis, which is handy. And then they will have days where they can come up, especially during training, so they can come up and see them, still have another look around, see how they're getting on. And then they will have feedback as well as they go through training as well, which is always a good thing. And then later on, as they progress through into the field army as well, they usually have families days, which everybody, doesn't matter whether you're married, single, parents, everybody, one big family can all come in and actually, if you will, have a barbecue and then speak to other people as well whose sons, daughters, husbands, wives are in part of that regiment or that area as well. And it's all about being one big massive family and having the communication. And even if you go away, there's always the correct numbers. People are always given the right details to speak to. So, for example, if I was to go away now, my mum, my wife, my children will all have the correct contact details for my regiment to ensure that if anything goes slightly wrong at home, they can get hold of them and then I can be informed and vice versa. So it's always a two-way street with information. So the more that's given out, the better it is as well.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear. Some really useful information there and how that support can make a difference. And it just goes to show that joining the Army is a journey that involves the whole family. And the Army is there to help at every step. So a massive thank you to all of you for being on the panel today and sharing your experiences. So really appreciate that. And I hope that's cleared up a few questions and shown that the process might be more straightforward than you first thought. Joining the Army is a big decision, but it's one that comes with a lot of support. And that brings us to the end of this programme. In our next episode, we'll be taking a closer look at what Army life is really like day to day beyond the headlines. Well, we hope you'll join us for our next episode of Behind the Camo.